If you're watching this right now, and you are, it's probably because you saw the Deathclaw in Season 2 of Fallout.
I think the chickens get out here.
Those aren't chickens.
Or you played the games. Or most likely, both. Either way, you're into the Deathclaw and you want to know more about it.
I defer to you about what to do in this situation.
So today, I'm going to tell you exactly what makes the Deathclaw the perfect alpha predator of the wasteland. This will not be theory, this will not be conjecture, this will be precise and exact information about why the Deathclaw looks the way it does from an anatomical and physiological perspective. As it happens, I am the world's #1 foremost expert on Deathclaw anatomy. Why? How? Because I'm the one who made them. I'm Jonah Loeb, creature designer, game artist, comic book creator, and illustrator. And today is a celebration. I have made dragons, I've made giants, I've made ghouls, I've made crab people, I've made more crab people, I've made woolly mammoth, and I've made giant irradiated insects. But the Deathclaw is my best, finest, and most deadly creation. And it's about to be on TV. I should say up front also that I did not invent the Deathclaw. These were originally conceived of by Scott Campbell at Interplay, who originally thought of them as kind of like werewolves. They didn't go with that direction. Instead, they bought a Tarrasque, which is a monster from D&D, from the game Planescape Torment, and they put that in the game, called it Deathclaws. But I took it from a 10-pixel tall sprite into a fully realized, detailed 3D model for Fallout 3. And then 5 years later, I got to redesign that same thing for Fallout 4. And the Fallout 4 version is what they're going to be using in the show. Today, we will cover the 5 most iconic aspects of the Deathclaw and discover why these traits solidify its position as the alpha predator of the wasteland. Before we get going, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. My next video will be on the aesthetics of the Deathclaw, and in that video, I will be giving away a very special, very secret surprise to one of you. But to be eligible, you need to like and subscribe and leave a comment. We good? Did you do it? Okay, great. Let's begin. Let's start with the horns. Horns are iconic to the Deathclaw. Without them, they're basically just giant lizards. But what's the purpose of these horns? Deathclaws are social animals. While they mostly hunt alone, they tend to live in packs, where social standing matters. And in their world, they need to fight to establish a place in the pecking order. But just like animals, Deathclaws will avoid actually hurting each other if they can. The Deathclaw's DNA is based on the framework of the Jackson chameleon, which also has horns that they use to establish dominance over other males. The male Deathclaw develops sharp, forward-facing horns for ramming and shoving other males. Deathclaw matriarch horns turn up and back. That's because they're not used for combat. Instead, it's used to emphasize height and silhouette and status. When it came to redesigning these creatures, the horns in Fallout 3 always looked to me like they could just snap off. They were too thin, too separate from the skull, more like the antlers of a deer, which fall off every year. If one male Deathclaw rams into another, those horns better stay fused to their skull. And so that's what I did. I kept the iconic curling shape, but I added oomph by integrating them into the design of the skull itself. Like a battering ram, I gave the center of their skull a large, flat, thick plate. This plate protects the brain and rides partway over the eye socket to provide protection and coverage from the sun. Is it like the Balrog? Yeah, definitely. But I did make this little clay demon head when I was a camper before I'd even seen the movies. So, did Peter Jackson rip off my idea? Yeah, probably. I was still a little kid when I saw Luke Skywalker battle the Rancor. And when that bone in its mouth snapped in half, something in me just fell in love. In the real world, the jaws and teeth of a predator are some of its most important tools, and studying them can tell us a great deal about the way it hunts, kills, and eats. Let's do these in order. First, hunting. There is something unusual about the jaws of the Deathclaw. Do you see it? Look at the gap in the center. This gap is big enough to fit a human hand, or a very large tongue. Remember, the Deathclaw is a hybrid, and some of its DNA comes from snakes. Snakes smell the air with their tongues. So do Deathclaws. I tried to find a really good animation of this in-game, but when I googled Deathclaw tongues, I mostly just turned up a lot of fan art. The jaws themselves are powerful. Their mandibular muscles, the ones that determine how strongly it can bite, are very large. Coupled with their powerful neck muscles, this makes for a crushing bite. But consider the spotted hyena. The spotted hyena has the most powerful jaws in the mammalian kingdom. But why did they develop these very strong jaws? The answer? Marrow. The jaws of the spotted hyena can crack the femur of a giraffe to get at the rich marrow inside. The wasteland is a cruel, hungry, desolate place. Predators need every calorie they can get, and so the Deathclaw consumes skin, fat, muscle, and bone. Coupled with the powerful neck muscles of the Deathclaw, this thing can deliver an extremely strong bite. The teeth of the Deathclaw can certainly kill, but they're not designed for killing. Its teeth are sharp, but not razor sharp. Long, but not that long. And while they don't actually have that many teeth, the ones they do have are large and thick, with long roots that proceed up into the skull and down into the jaw. They are deeply embedded. They are in there. These creatures tear off limbs, pulverize them through sheer force, and swallow them whole. In the jaws of a Deathclaw, a raider's skull is as fragile as a grape. I should note before we move on that it seems that they went a slightly different direction with the show. They made the teeth smaller and made them more numerous. This definitely vibes with the idea of this being kind of a messy hybrid, but we'll get more into the aesthetics and the reasoning of that in my next video. Let's talk about tails, and I want to start this section off with a single word that is sure to make the child in every one of us squee with delight. Ready? Dinosaur. Nothing captured my imagination as a child quite like dinosaurs, and you can see their inspiration in the Deathclaw in the tail. In the animal kingdom, tails are most often used as counterbalance. When you are running from predators, you are running as fast as you possibly can, and you need to be able to zig and zag with total control over uneven and unpredictable terrain. If you fall, you're dead. But when you're a predator, you need to zig when they zig and strike when they zag wrong. If you fail, you don't eat. Deathclaw tails are immensely strong, and the bones inside them, especially near the end, are heavy. The Deathclaw's posture is forever leaning forward, so that a great deal of weight is distributed in front of it. Their tails help to counter that weight and provide balance both front to back and side to side. If you've ever seen a Deathclaw dodging and weaving while under fire, just know that this is only possible because of the tail. These tails can also be used for crowd control. Deathclaws use their speed to get up close and personal, and as they spin their bodies around, these tails operate like those of an ankylosaurus, whipping and smashing anyone nearby. The bones of the tail proceed up the spine to form plates. Like those of the Stegosaurus, these plates catch the sun and warm the blood. Though modified Deathclaws are theoretically cold-blooded, these plates help generate energy. They also look really, really cool, but I'll talk more about the aesthetics of their design in my next video. Armor. I loved the concept art of the Fallout 3 Deathclaw, illustrated by Adam Adamowicz. The reptilian skin read as dry and loose, and it really sold the idea of life in a nuclear wasteland. This thin skin also gave us a look at their thin, almost emaciated physiques. And yet skin like this could not possibly survive small arms fire. It doesn't matter how big and strong you are, if your skin cannot protect you from bullets, then you cannot survive. I needed to give the Deathclaw armor. I started with the vertebra. In Fallout 3, we'd given the Deathclaw fleshy protrusions on its back like a rooster's comb. In Fallout 4, I hardened these into a crest of plates. These plates pulled the skin of the back into thick rhinoceros folds. I turned the shoulder blades into their own protrusions, adding armor to the skin of the shoulders, careful to limit their size and shape to maximize flexibility. The Deathclaw now had two kinds of covering, one that was thin and loose, the other armored and leathery. I began to think of this creation as having an inside and an outside. The portions that faced outward were armored. The portions that faced inward were thinner and more vulnerable. This aesthetic dominates the Fallout 4 Deathclaw's design, and it's best exemplified in the arms and in the claws. And this leads me, of course, to the claws. These are the Deathclaw's most devastating weapons. Deathclaws have upwards of a 12-foot wingspan, and the claws of their middle fingers can grow as long as a human forearm. They just need to hit you once, and you're done. If the Deathclaw had a Latin name, it would be Unguibus Mortis, the claws of death. In Fallout 3, these were long and thin and skeletal. This was one of my most favorite pieces of concept art right here. Except that here, the tendons of the hand are long and easier to tear, the bones thin and easier to break. I revised them. I made the hands shorter and thicker. At the same time, I cover them in armored scutes, which are smaller, sharper, and more articulated around the fingers. The claws themselves are of uneven lengths, with the longest one being the size of a scimitar. But the true secret of creature design is the addition of unexpected elements. These huge claws sell the idea of this being a killing, tearing machine, but real animals are not machines. They're animals. With so much violent emphasis placed on the outside of these huge, curving weapons, let's look at the inside of them. They're more sensitive than you think. They have paws like a cat, padded, sensitive, capable. They can run on all fours, feel things, and even pick them up. Isn't that cute to think about? Deathclaws have little cat toe beans. So that's it. Those are the 5 primary anatomical traits of the Deathclaw. In my next video, we'll be covering the aesthetic decisions that I made in creating the Deathclaw. And in that video, we'll be giving away a super secret Deathclaw-related art gift from me to you, which you are only eligible for if you subscribe and if you leave a comment. If you enjoyed today's video, check out more. I've got a lot more right over here.